Good evening. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Wilmette Zoning Board of Appeals. Ms. Roberts, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Boyer.
Here.
Mr. Colang.
Here.
Ms. Norick.
Here.
Mr. Robke.
Here.
Mr. Schneider.
Here.
Mr. Sermon.
Here.
Chairman Duffy.
Chair is present as well. Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you new to our proceedings, the purpose of this board is to hear evidence on applications for variances from our zoning ordinance and on applications for special use. Based upon the evidence we hear this evening, we will make a recommendation to the Village Board of Trustees as to whether the applications that come before us this evening should be granted or denied. We will vote to grant or deny, we will vote to recommend granting or denying each application for variation based on whether the application meets the standards of review set forth in Section 5.4.f of our village ordinance. Applications for special use will be considered based upon whether the standards of review set forth in Section 5.3.e of our village ordinance are met. The Village Board of Trustees will consider the recommendations we make this evening at their next regularly scheduled meeting on October 23rd. Our recommendations to the board are advisory only. The Village Board has the final say on all applications and will make its own determination as to whether to grant or deny them. The Village Board is not legally bound by our recommendations. There's one small exception to this rule. If this board makes a negative recommendation with respect to an application, in order for the Village Board of Trustees to approve that application, a supermajority of 5 Village Board members must vote to approve it, rather than a simple majority of 4. There is one other small peculiarity to our proceedings of which you should be aware. This board does not operate by majority vote. We operate instead by a tyranny of 4. In other words, no matter how many board members are present on a given evening, in order to get a positive recommendation from this board, an application must receive 4 affirmative votes. We have 7 members, 2, 4, 6, 7. So you need a vote of at least 4 to 3. I will skip the next paragraph. In recognition, no, we're skipping that. There is no penalty for asking for a continuance. No such request will be held against you. Oh, you have an option of asking for a continuance at the time that your case is called. There's no penalty for asking for this continuance. No such request will be held against you when your case is eventually heard. If you wish to ask for a continuance, however, you must do so at the beginning of your presentation before making any substantive arguments as to the merits of your case. Please also be aware that if you request a continuance, there's no guarantee as to how many board members will be present on the evening to which your case is continued. The cases we shall hear this evening will be heard in the order set forth on the pre-printed agenda located on the table near the door where you first came in. When your case is called, please proceed to the podium, state your name and address, and tell us exactly why your application meets the standards of review that are applicable to it. Each member of this board is a longtime resident of the village and has visited your property during the past week. In addition, we have received from village staff these green booklets containing all written information that you have submitted in support of your application, as well as any other correspondence the village has received. Accordingly, it is not necessary that you repeat what you have already stated in writing. Please just hit the high points with particular attention to why you believe your application meets the standards of review. After the applicant has had a chance to speak, we will open the podium to others who wish to speak either for or against the application. Everyone will be permitted to have their say, though we would ask that you keep your comments as short and to the point as possible. After we have heard all oral presentations, I will close the evidence and the members of the board will discuss what they have heard and take a vote. Once the evidence is closed, no further testimony on an application may be offered. The only people entitled to speak during that part of the proceeding will be the members of the board. This meeting is a legal proceeding, and all testimony tonight must be given under oath. If you are here and planning to testify tonight, I would ask that you raise your right hand at this time and be sworn. You guys, are you going to speak during the meeting? No? Yeah. Make it easy. Let's just swear everybody in. Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that you will tell the truth in the testimony that you're about to give? If so, please say, I do. Okay, thank you, everybody. Ms. Roberts, will you please call our first case of the evening?
Our first case is 2018 Z47, 1160 Michigan Avenue. This is a request for a 1-foot side yard retaining wall setback variation to permit the installation of a retaining wall on the north and south lot line.
Hey, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. My name is Brant Rust. The address is 1160 Michigan Avenue. We are requesting setback relief of the retaining walls from 1 foot to be as near to the property line as possible. It's kind of a unique way of describing a lakefront property of having its own baked-in hardship, in that it's a nice lakefront property, but it is common for the neighboring properties over there to have a significant slope downward to the beach, which requires, in some cases, retaining walls, which, if followed by standard zoning practice, would be each 1 feet away from the property line, and therefore just creating 2 feet strips of land, which obviously would be very difficult for maintenance purposes. And in the cases of having existing on our property, also create additional 1 foot strips of no man's land, which would be raised above grade and also not necessarily an aesthetically pleasing condition if followed to the 1 foot setback requirement.
So I have a quick question for you. The neighboring property to the north, right?
Correct.
Because this is, we're asking for a variance on both sides or just on the north side?
It would be both sides. There's some existing on the south side, but the north side and the south side will both be affected by this, yes.
So you're going to put a new retaining wall along the south side as well, or extend the existing?
Essentially, we're going to work with the neighbor to the south to repair or replace what's existing on the south side there, because I think it probably straddles. It's the midline of that is right on the property line, so it's kind of a in order to bring it up to date and
So
make
on,
it uniform.
So all right, I've got 2 questions for you on 1.4, page 1.4.
Sure.
The area that is like checked in, like bricks, is that the retaining wall, or are we talking about the darkened area along each side?
Correct. The part of the highlighted area, which I see now,
You
is
can
in
put it
black
on
and
the
white and a little
side.
If
bit. Oh,
you,
yeah, let me,
yeah.
I have a color.
There we go. Oh, okay, you've got a larger one. Thank you.
Yes. Let's go to that same page. Actually, you can see it here.
Yeah.
That portion, it's readable. That portion that's checkered is where the existing is currently situated.
So can you point to it on there? Because, so that whole darkened line is,
I think that's the retaining wall, isn't it?
The darkened line would be, it's all retaining wall, that's in red.
yeah,
And it seems, and then the dashed-in portion that's kind of checkered there is the existing that would be repaired or replaced.
all right, and that is on the north side.
I'm sorry, that is on the south side, south neighbor, north side, up here.
Are you
This is
sure?
the north side.
Well, it's kind of,
No, because the lakes, oh, Michigan's here. Yeah, okay. I apologize, this doesn't have everything.
Next page has the balance.
Yeah. All right, and then on the north side of the property, the whole wall is being replaced,
on the north side it would be new.
all new. Yeah, but the neighbor to the north has an existing retaining wall for a portion of that area, correct? On the north.
It's not towards the front of the house, I believe they do this.
Right, and their retaining wall is a foot from the property line, close to the property line.
Does not look like our civil engineer surveyed down here.
Okay, but, so my question is, the section of the retaining wall ultimately that is above ground is not going to be on the property line because, as Lisa explained to me before the meeting, there's got to be a footing underneath that, and the footing is what actually will be up against the property line. Is that your understanding of how this will work?
If you were using a uniformly concentric footing with the wall, then you would have a footing that extends past the outside edge, but with an eccentric footing with the correct amount of rebar, civil and structural engineering, you can
Get
do
right.
just like an urban infill project in the city where you
Lot line
have
footing.
all of your footings on one side, and then the wall is essentially on the outside edge of the footing.
Okay.
It just requires a little bit more
And-
steel.
And that's what you're proposing?
Yes, so for the site sections, we try to dash in some of the
people on
eccentric footings as not going any further, just touching that property line and being all in within
Right.
the property.
Okay.
So can I emphasize, it's the red line that is the top of the footing, because it can't be the dashed, because if you look at section 1.6, that looks like it is what, 9 inches? The width of the footing?
The width of the footing would be shown here at about 36 inches wide nominal.
No, wait.
Let me
I'm
make
looking
sure.
at the section, not the footing, the wall,
Yes,
the retaining wall itself. What is the width of that?
we had assumed that it would be 10 inches maximum.
Okay,
Or
so
12
then,
inches in the case that it would be retaining
I got-
36 inches of
so
width.
that's 10 inches of a 50-foot wide lot, right? And if you
Correct.
then turn back to 1.4, it can, the 10 inches must be the red line rather than the dashed.
Right. He pointed out the red line, I think, earlier as being the
top of the
retaining
footing.
wall.
That would be
That'll be the top of the
wall.
retaining wall, yeah.
So the red line would not include the footing width.
Sure, that's okay.
Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Mind that, yes.
Now,
Go ahead, Mr. Sermon.
okay. The reason that you're putting in these retaining walls is to change the grade of this property, right? Otherwise, it's continuous across. It may dip and
Yeah, I mean.
flow, but it's because of the way the house is sited that's creating this. And I guess the question I have is, and I think the reason that we have the 1 foot, I don't know if there's a code reason. Do you know, Lisa, if there's a code issue?
It's to minimize the impact on adjacent property for excavating for a footing.
Yeah. I guess my concern would be what the condition is of the neighbor's property afterwards. After the wall is up, they're gonna see the wall, I guess. I don't know if that's common or uncommon.
How
As-
high?
As the property goes up
Right.
and down, their property is gonna come up to it, so it may be up 3 feet or 4 feet higher, or some
would-
amount over the property.
To answer your question, yeah, we would only go to the, in the case where we are lowering our grade on our property only, we're not disturbing any neighbor grades. It would be only as high as it needed to be, or in the cases where we would build up the grade, it would be visible to the neighbor, yes, correct. But our goal would be to keep it at
So is it
existing or
gonna be
below.
stepped all the way along then, or?
It would basically be a continuous contour of the existing grades at that property line. Only exception to that would be if we were to increase the grades on our property higher than what is shown, or what is existing, for the sake of flattening out a lawn in the backyard.
So what do you?
Aren't you
is it-
doing that at your section 3, where you're
Yeah.
building up, so the condition that Mr. Sermon's referencing, where the neighbor's going to see this concrete wall?
Right, so site section 3.
Does
there,
exist.
we show that condition, whereas all the other ones where we're actually lowering the grade, such as in 4, 3, and the other 1 and 2, we would not go any higher other than, say, 1 or 2 inches for the sake of mulch or landscaping.
So how much of this retaining wall is going to be exposed on the neighbor's side after it's built? A length of it?
As a sheer summation of like square footage.
Lineal,
That is, the only case in which we would be
It's going to be this area here.
raising it above natural grade would be site section 3. By my estimate, that's probably about 30 foot run of wall.
So-
in which case it would be 90 square feet.
So 30 feet by 3 feet in height is what you're saying?
Correct, keeping it at 3 feet or below.
And that's on the north side. On the south side, that's not going to exist? That's not going to happen?
But the south side, you wouldn't have any above-grade exposure of the lots. We would just be actually carving out on our side in order to step down to the pool terrace along the south side yard.
Okay. Then,
I just want to make sure I understood this right. So there's a maximum of 3 feet exposure for the wall on the north side for 30 feet.
Correct.
So 3 feet from grade, that's what, as a neighbor looking at it, you're going to see 3 feet for 30 feet.
We are setting the limitation just to make sure it's no more than 3 feet above existing grade at its highest. And as the site section would show, is more of the worst-case scenario of that. 30 feet would be my estimate, based on the contours, just looking at the dimensions of the plan.
so at what point in the property do you reach what would be considered the dunes as opposed to, more of the natural, I shouldn't say natural, more of the,
Manicure?
no, yeah, like dirt,
Yard area?
Yeah.
Beach grass area.
Yeah, and the reason I ask that is because it's my understanding that you can't manipulate the dunes without the approval of the Army Corps of Engineers.
Correct, within a certain, I believe it's 50 feet away from the BFE. We've had that come up at a few other lakefront developments up north, but from what I understand, yes, we've dealt with the 50-foot setback from the BFE line at 585, I believe is
Is the line.
the
yeah.
contour for that base flood elevation.
And so you're at least 50 feet away before
Yeah,
you start manipulating anything. Okay.
I believe the current water line is at 581.
But that water line changes every year. So, but the Army Corps of Engineers change that or no? They just say
No,
that
no,
the
there's no-
average is.
There's no
this.
plan to manipulate any grades
Yeah.
that close to the existing beach. Where
All
the
right.
tree line basically essentially stops. The tree line stops. There's no manipulation whatsoever of retaining on that sides. Unless,
Now-
other than what's allowed by right, but
If you maintain the 1-foot separation from the property line, you would still have that 30-foot by 3-foot bare concrete exposure to the north, right?
correct. It would just be
A
an extra
foot,
1 foot of
yeah.
land, which the neighbor gets to, well, I guess there's not really too much maintenance because that's very wooded, but yeah, it would essentially just be 1 foot less of usable
So,
area.
so with the installation of this retaining wall, are you, speaking of wooded land, what are you removing? Are you removing trees? Are you removing brush? I mean, what is it that you're going to have to impact as you install this wall?
All the trees at the property line would be maintained. The ones that are inside on the property itself, I believe there are a few that are being removed as per the approval of the forester. But everything, the goal is to not impact anything negatively, especially anything within or near, within a reasonable distance for structural roots, feeder roots
So
as
what-
well, but with the existing house being torn down, they were.
So I don't know if the neighbor's here, but if the neighbor comes and says, well, I've got, some trees that are significant
Chance.
trees, you'll have your opportunity. I just saw your hand go. As I explained at the beginning of the meeting, he presents his case, and then when he's done and we're done asking him questions, then you'll have the opportunity. Okay. Oh, it's hard to hear him. Yeah, he speaks softly.
I will try to,
Yeah, but they don't, they're directional, so as long as you
Pay more-
kind of are
I'll pay
in
more
front of
attention
it.
to that, sorry.
Yeah. So if the neighbor comes and says, we got these tree issues, you're going to have to work with this, right? I mean, it's not,
yeah, our GC is well aware of that issue. We've already had a meeting this week on that topic in particular.
All right.
Do the neighbors to the north or south have an objection?
I can't speak to that, but
So you have not talked to them?
I haven't personally, no, but the GC, I believe, has had some contact with the neighbors.
So, I wasn't able to get out of the site because it was locked. So the existing wall, why can't you use that?
Oh, we certainly could. I think that it was just a matter of if we were, and where that exists, the grades on our side of the lot line are actually higher, but we will be lowering it. So the existing retaining wall would become excessively tall to that point, in which case it could be reduced in height. So we're essentially in that area bringing our grades closer to the neighbor's grades and to the south, where that wall is currently retaining.
But it'll be
a
the
higher
same on
grade on
that,
our side.
it'll be the same on the other side, right? It's not changing on that side.
We would essentially, correct. We're going to be closer to
So
their.
it'll stay the same on the south side of the neighbor's side. What about the north side?
The north side, we are just going to be a little bit lower across that north, from front to back, with the exception
gonna
of
be-
that 1 3-foot section.
Your side is going to be lower.
Yes.
Okay, so once again, I guess I don't understand, just, it looks like you're just looking to pick up a foot on either side, and there's really no real, I mean, you have some retaining walls there you could utilize already. I guess I have a hard time understanding why you need to do it this way and get a variance, why you just don't use what's there.
In the case that's, what's there would be excessively tall than.
On your
and-
side?
On our side, both sides, really.
Well, that's how you-
Both neighbors would have to look at it, and I
Right.
think it's a concrete wall with a cyclone fence on top of it,
Okay.
or a chain link fence.
Are you saying there is an existing retaining wall on the north side?
I'm sorry, we were talking about the south side?
North side.
South side.
Both
North side, I don't,
Well, on your diagram, you have it, I mean, the way it's drawn, it looks like it's on both sides. Like I said, I couldn't get on the site because it was all locked, so I don't know.
So the only existing retaining wall is on the south side. Is that right?
on this plan, but I believe it was mentioned that there was something on the north side that was not indicated on this civil drawing, if I'm not mistaken. Is that? Nothing on the north side?
So there's nothing on the north side, so you're creating a brand-new retaining wall along the north side. On the south side, there's a section that is existing that is marked on here, and it is approximately, it's this section, it's where these stairs are, it looks like. So the existing retaining wall on the south side, you're removing so that you can create a uniform wall that is longer
Correct. We
and
would,
shorter than the existing. That's what you're saying.
we would like to work with the neighbor to repair and replace that, yes. But that's a matter of whether or not that's something we can rebuild to the lot line or not. Comes into the decision-making there, but yeah, that would be our goal, is to work as much as we can with the neighbor to bring that up to current-day, even engineering standards. I think it's been there for quite a while. But it's been chipped away by frost, and it's just concrete, I believe.
It's character. I'm teasing.
So-
Mr. Sermon had a question, I'm sorry.
When I look at the topography map, it looks like the grades are continuous between the north property, the center property, and this is on 1-5. They're kind of continuous, they flow along. So is this a condition, I mean, are we creating, or was a hardship created here to accommodate, is it to accommodate entering the house at different levels? Is that the reason that we're going through this here?
Yes, it is a complicated issue as it applies to zoning, heights, as the way the house would use the site for stepping of levels. So there is quite a bit of backstory on how we got to the point where the floor levels are set the way they are, but we are looking to also allow for proper access to the pool, which I believe is required safety in the pool codes for emergency access, which also needs to make that a usable space. In the case where you have a usable ingress, egress, where you would have steps that would need to go down to the pool area for EMT.
So,
Worst case scenario?
but again, is having a pool a hardship? Because the pool then drives that change, which then drives, yeah.
The pool I wouldn't say is the hardship. I would say the hardship is only the site contours that you find, that you get with that lot.
But the topography appears fairly consistent from the drawing, and I guess, I guess I'm concerned if you go to page 1.6, the second section, it appears that the neighbor's grade compared to the new grade that you're creating may be 30-inch drop.
Site section 4?
2.
2.
Oh, 2.
So when I look at that, it looks like the drop below the wall is about 30 inches? Is that correct?
36 inches, yes.
36, okay. So is there going to be a fence on top of that wall?
If the,
You can't have that drop, a 36-inch drop from one property to another, I wouldn't imagine. So then I guess my question is, if you put a fence there, then you're putting the fence almost on the lot line, and you said you were going to use a cyclone fence.
No, there was an existing cyclone fence.
Oh, there was an existing, oh, okay.
yeah, we wouldn't use cyclone fence.
Oh, okay.
We-
In section 1, you indicate a privacy fence on the south, is it the south side?
That is the south side, correct.
So how would you deal with that height difference between the neighbors? Unless I'm interpreting the code.
I've seen the information here, but my understanding is a 3-foot drop would require some protection.
Yeah. And then the thing is, what we have to look at is what the hardship is.
Okay.
And this is a 50-foot lot?
66.6.
Or 66. That's a fairly wide lot. To me, it seems like we're pushing the envelope a little bit, and we're, impacting the neighbors, and that's what we have to look at from the zoning perspective, too. How does this impact? And now, all of a sudden, if you put a wall right on the line, I understand if you're in an urban area where you're doing properties like that. But I guess I don't, I guess the drawing isn't detailed enough to show where the handrails start and stop and,
Or where the grade really is.
yeah.
Picking up, I think there's also, in terms of the issue of the hardship, seems as though there's two different conditions, and I'm trying to understand what drives the need for this on the north side. On the south side, you made some vague reference to pool requirements, and maybe you could elaborate that. But on the north side, what's driving this? To keep a flat walk? Why can't that walkway just follow the contours on that side and eliminate the need for this retaining wall?
The only major condition for ingress egress would be the window well for emergency egress for the bedrooms in the basement, which would either need to go front or back, but in this case they could be, that foot traffic could be directed towards the street rather than the lakeside. The window well is shown on the plans here. Site section 2 here. And that encroaches 3 foot into the setback as is. Our side yard setback is 6.6 feet, 10%, which, to allow for a gated guardrail with that window well, you would also want to have some way of walking past that window well, which would be 3 foot wide.
But could that walkway, instead of being at 6065, be at 6095?
That would not be ideal, but it could. The first floor height, the entry floor of the home is at 607.25, which means that the basement window would be far less than that as well, by about 3 to 4 feet to the top of the window in the basement. So yes, it could. Would it be a ideal condition? No, but yes, that.
What I'm hearing is with regard to the north side, the reason for that retaining wall, if we ask for a hardship, is because of the window well?
Because of the window well and the floor height, which kind of extends into the garage, which is yeah, so just due to the floor heights of the garage and the mudroom that connects the attached garage to the house being at lower than existing grade, the motor court would be kind of a sunken feature.
Well, by the time you get to the motor court, you're on the other side. I mean, just looking at the area between the building, and we don't have plans, so we don't know where there's doors or anything going to that walkway. I'm just trying to understand.
Well, the only window
what's
well I'm
driving-
seeing
I
is on
think,
the
I
south
think the
side.
reason that
No,
the
there's
two.
one-
That's a window well?
Yeah.
But that blank space is a window well?
Yeah.
Okay.
You see it here.
But that's south side, isn't it? And this is north side?
I can put some
No, this is
floor plans down there.
north with the cut, so you're looking this way
I see. From the front of the site.
from the front of
Okay.
the site.
All right.
So you're consistent with this, and the walkways, looks like it's a
It just
fairly
seems like
flat,
you're,
but I don't know why you couldn't follow the contours.
Right.
it seems like you're just trying to fit too much in with a 66-foot lot. We're worrying about the 2 feet on the side. I guess I'm concerned about how it impacts the neighbor visually and how it impacts them in the future if they decide to lower the grade as well. I mean, you're lowering it because you want a certain thing. They could lower it, and all of a sudden they're looking at your wall. So I'm not sure how that impacts.
All right.
So along the side here, we've got the window well. This is the ground floor plan. We do have a service door for the mudroom, service door for the garage, and we have a mechanical courtyard in the front here.
So on the north
for access
edge,
to that.
you have another window well, right?
On the north, we have a window well
Right.
here.
And that's the one that shows up in the section, one of
The
the
one that's
sections.
on the south side is right here.
You have more room on the south side.
We do have more room on the south side, yes.
Well, I mean, on the first ones with the mechanical and everything you referenced, looking at section 1, what's the difference in grade? It's hard to read here. The retaining wall is at 610, and what's the walkway at there?
608.9, so difference of about 1.35. No, I'm sorry. Yes. 1.35 feet.
And at 1.5 feet, you'd do a lot line footing on that instead of just a small retaining wall? Interlocking pavers or something?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? What was that?
For 1 foot, why would you have such a massive retaining wall?
That was generously oversized. Engineering would be pending our approval of where that actually would be placed.
All right, do we have any other questions right now for our applicant? Because if there's somebody that does
Just
want to
really
ask some
quick, maybe I
questions.
missed it. What's the width, what's the distance between the house and the proposed retaining wall on north and south?
North end, it would be essentially 6 feet.
So you have 6 feet
South end would be.
on north, okay? And then south is how? 4?
Well, south is supposed to be
South
more.
is more.
South is more.
South is on the right of the section.
Okay. That's-
Would the required setbacks be about
Double that.
16 feet or
12
something,
feet,
or how does it work?
Whatever 25% is.
We do have a site plan here, one second.
So you have 16.67 combined?
So 16 feet combined, you said?
Combined.
16 feet
Yeah.
combined, so 10?
10 feet
Yeah.
on the south side.
Okay.
10 and 6 is what we've got. Yep. All right. there's somebody in the audience that would like to speak or ask a question, so I'm going to pause our interrogation of you. And this young lady right here, you had a question. Why don't you come up, introduce yourself, and then come on up and ask your question, and we'll see what we can do to help out.
I live at 1156 Michigan in the house to the south,
Okay.
and
And what's your name?
Donnelly Trotter, Trotter.
Thank you, Ms. Trotter. Welcome to our meeting.
Thank you. My son-in-law helped me a little bit, so I have a couple of things that he put on here.
Could you speak into the microphone there?
I'm sorry, sure.
That's okay. There's like 3 people that watch us on TV, and,
All right.
you know.
They're all my fans, right?
Yours, yes, now.
They have, so to speak, right now, they have a vacant lot with no existing structures on it, and why can't they build to comply with the current rules is number one question. And why only 1 foot? I mean, I think it said in the letter we got that they just wanted like 1 foot on each side. But they not take the whole thing down a foot on either side?
So what they're talking about, though, is the distance from the lot line to where the retaining wall's edge or footing could start on their property, not height, but
Okay.
the distance from the lot line. So the code that we have is that retaining wall can't be within 1 foot of the property line. And they're asking to put it at the property line. So that's the 1 foot that
All
we're
right.
talking about.
All right. And the other thing is, we've been having some really heavy rains this year. And, I'll step back. All right. So the rain comes down between the houses. If they're having concrete up to the fence, all that rain is going to come on my side. There's not going to be any place for the rain to go on their side. I don't believe the way this is structured now.
Well, what'll happen is the rain that lands on their side will stay on their side, and the rain that's on your side will stay on your
All
side.
right, and okay, then thirdly, I already have a retaining wall going down that side, and on top of it is a wooden structure, maybe 8 feet high, so it's kind of like a privacy thing there, and that's attached to the concrete steps that you walk down to go to my lower level. And so they're going to take that wall out and replace it with something else?
Well, they need your permission, your cooperation in order to do that, if we approve what they're proposing, or if we recommend approval to the village board for what they're requesting.
So, but they still need to have my approval?
They got to talk to you because it's as much your wall, it's your wall as much as theirs. Because my understanding of what we're looking at is it's kind of sitting on the property line.
Okay.
So it's
It's a fine wall, so I see no reason to replace.
Right. Well, what they're proposing may be a more aesthetically pleasing wall, but it'll be a much longer wall, and you may not see as much of it in its newer configuration, but it does impact you because, like you're saying, you've got this wooden structure that is attached to it, so
Right.
you would have to, they would have to get your permission, first of all, to manipulate that wall at all, and then would they, you guys got to figure out what that wood structure is, and is there any benefit to you? If there is, what's the impact then? And
Okay.
all right. Do you have any more questions for us?
I have no more questions. I can't think of any. If I think of any, I'll come back, all
All
right?
right, well, but if you do make it, it's while we're talking,
Yeah.
so there's really not a lot of opportunity for...
I'm just kidding. No,
Oh,
I
okay,
think
all
I've
right.
covered
Ms.
it.
Trotter, I have a question. During all this time, has the general contractor or the owner or anyone talked to you
No.
about this?
No, he told me that he had plans, and he was going to bring them over and show them to me. That was a couple months ago, but he's never come over, and they've never said anything to me about any of this. All right. So
Okay.
this has been an awakening this evening.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, welcome to the development on your block.
It's...
I know, it's pretty
can
crazy.
Can you top this? is the whole
It's
thing.
looking that
All
way.
right.
Does anybody else have any questions for Ms. Trotter? No? Okay, thank you very much. Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to speak for or against this case? All right, seeing no one, Mr. Rust, would you come back up and we could maybe address some of Ms. Trotter's concerns?
Oh, yeah. That is something that we can certainly push forward with our general contractor to make sure that, contact is maintained and we can work, properly with Mrs. Trotter to find a solution. If it's at her best interest to do so, we're happy to.
Wouldn't that be good
bring
to
it
have
up
in
to-
hand before you came with this? I mean,
What's that?
wouldn't it have been better to have had this conversation already?
Yeah,
I-
because
It's good that we're having
It's
it.
a construction coordination issue, it's a design coordination
Yeah.
issue. Unless the general contractor is designing this and doing it design-build, I think the design needs to be coordinated
So,
with
yeah,
the
because what
neighbor.
we run into now is, she doesn't know what she's getting.
Okay.
So how can she be in support of your request? And if we approve this, and she says, well, no, this is not what I thought it was going to be, now we've got a problem. And I hate to, I'm implying that we're going to possibly push this off, or at least I would think that we would push this off until there's more information and maybe consulting between you and your neighbor.
Sure.
And your other neighbor, has the other neighbor?
The neighbor to the
Right.
north even aware that what you're proposing? I mean, they've got to be aware, they've been notified, but has there been discussion with them?
What is that? Have they-
Don't know.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
And
Yeah.
and additionally, the plan really doesn't identify, says where the new retaining wall, where the existing, but you can't see it on the graphic at all.
So we're looking at providing some better graphics to know what you guys are voting on and approving.
well, also, and having conversation with both neighbors so that they are in support of what you're proposing for us to vote on. Yeah, because they're the ones that are impacted, and they're the ones that are going to have the loudest voice about what you're doing, aside from us applying, standards of review to what you're requesting. Yeah.
Okay.
So I am going to look at this, yes?
One other difficulty I have is what the hardship is.
That was just whispered over here, yeah, which is you're going to have to sell us on the hardship. But one of the ways to do that is if both neighbors support what you're proposing, it helps, So I'm going to take a little straw vote here. Are we going to move forward with a recommendation to the village board on positive or negative on this application? Or are we going to postpone this? Are we going to kick the can down a couple of weeks and ask for them to come back at our next meeting, maybe? Yes, yes?
I'm fine voting.
So,
I'm fine voting too. We can do it.
I'm sorry, what did you say, Mr. Colling?
I said I'm fine voting.
these two are saying they're ready to vote.
Fine voting.
All right. Why don't, I'm going to, is there anything else you want to share with us before I'm going to see if someone will make a recommendation for this, I'm sorry, not a recommendation, make a motion? Yes? All right. Do you, yeah, because what's going to, what I think is going to happen here is you're just going to get a negative recommendation. You're just going to turn around and have to do what I'm suggesting you do, which is come back to us again.
Well, yeah, we'll certainly put together better graphics and certainly a better work in connection with the neighbor to seek their approval.
Both
Certainly,
neighbors.
Both neighbors.
All right.
You know,
so-
while it appears a de minimis ask, because it's only a foot on each side, I mean, it's, because of the
long
length
run.
of it, I mean,
Right.
it's really a major ask.
Disruptive to build.
Yeah.
So,
Disruptive to build. I think the hardship needs to be
I would table it,
just table it.
yeah.
presented more
Whatever
clearly.
you all agree.
And are you familiar with the standards of review that we use to evaluate this?
I am.
You are, okay.
It's
That's
a
typically
unique-
what has
it's a
to be
unique,
referred to.
It's a unique hardship in itself, but it's also
know.
one that all neighbors that have that sloping lot will share over the long term of development, in which you'll essentially create those two strip pieces of land at your property line. Because both neighbors, no matter what, will not agree on what the grades will be on their side of the lot line. But that's
But if you
essentially
went-
more of a macro view type of hardship that's not necessarily, certainly there are plenty of properties in the village that are not lakefront. It's very unusual to have, you consider anything about a lakefront property to be a hardship. But in this case, the grades
The
and the codes
uniqueness
as
of
written
the
would be-
lot.
Yeah, So
is the
it's-
hardship,
Why not?
is what he's claiming, yeah.
Work on the hardship
so-
when you come back
So
instead of
here's
presenting it
here's
now.
what we're going to do. We're going to table this, and the reason that we're going to table it is if we vote on this and have a negative recommendation, you have to start the process again. So you have to re-notify and reapply. If we table this,
Table it.
then your notices, carry over, and we can get you on the next on October 17th. If you can put this together in 2 weeks,
Certainly.
you won't be here.
Here on 17th.
You want to mail in your vote? If
Skype, John?
Sorry, calm. October 17th, you think you can have this put together, maybe?
Oh, certainly, yeah.
All right, then why don't we table this to October 17th? So can I have a motion to table this?
So moved.
All right, Mr. Robke's motion, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, Mr. Boyer's second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye as well. All right, thank you very much for your efforts.
Thank you.
Ms. Trotter, do you understand what we just did? Right, and that they have to come talk to you and the other neighbor to discuss the plans and, get your kind of approval of what they're trying to do so that they can come back and present to us again and talk about it.
But they may, if they don't meet that date may shift, right? So maybe should she contact Lisa?
Well,
or-
are you going to, you won't send a new notice, right?
If the applicant advises me that he is not ready for the next meeting, it will be on the agenda to table to the next date after that, which would be in November 7th.
Right, but would Ms. Trotter would have to follow then the notices posted on the village website in order to be
Right,
aware?
absolutely. Mrs. Trotter could give me a call.
Or Ms. Trotter, yeah, you
The
can call
applicant
Lisa.
should.
Lisa,
At the
at Village
yes.
Hall, yes. Lisa Roberts is her name. Okay, let's move on. Ms. Roberts, when you're, okay. All right, when you're ready, let's rock and roll here.
I thought they said that it's being pushed to the 17th.
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 Our next case is 2018 Z48, 415 Prairie Avenue. This is a request for a 498-square-foot front yard impervious surface coverage variation and a variation to permit a parking space in a front yard to permit the widening of the existing driveway on the legal nonconforming structure.
You look familiar.
Yes. Hello again.
Hello.
Thank you. My name is Mike Venichuk, and I live 1615 Highland Avenue here in Wilmette. And I'm the architect for Matt and Courtney Rady, who live at 415 Prairie Avenue. So their existing garage, they have a single one-car garage, and it's very narrow. They have 4 kids, a pretty good-sized dog. They have a lot of stuff. They can get one car in there, but it's really hard to open the doors. So the car that's used for the kids is pretty much the one that's parked out right outside the garage. Well, the existing driveway is very narrow. So initially we thought, well, what we want is a little more clean, mud-free, hard surface for the kids to load on, get in and out. They've parked out on the street, and they've done that before. And that street can be very busy with traffic. There can be a lot of cars parked out there, and it's better not to try to get the kids in the car out on the street. So it just would be very nice if they could do that. Also, though, on their street, there's no overnight parking. It's one of those blocks. My block is like that.
Did you find out why?
You know what? I've asked them, and there's a lot of different urban myths about why that is, but I have no idea. Do you have that?
No, in some strange places they have it. It
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense. I haven't
Yeah, I don't.
figured out why.
Yeah, I have no idea, so. So occasionally, it'd be nice for more access for the kids, but also occasionally, when they have guests over, to park another car there. Otherwise, they have to park over on Maple, or call the police, and ask. But that just gets to be a pain. Sometimes you forget to do that. Then you get a ticket, then you've got to go down and deal with that. Now, the reason they can't widen their driveway is because they far exceed the allowable front yard impervious surface coverage. This is their main hardship, and it was caused by a previous owner. The previous owner built that house and garage on their front yard. Their allowable impervious surface is 375 square feet. That's a lot of square footage to work with. However, the house and the garage take up about 454 square feet. So right away, they've lost all their impervious square footage. Their driveway and walk to the house, right now existing, take up about 250 square feet. So if the house were built back where it should be and meet current zoning, they wouldn't need a variance at all to do what they wanted to do. So it's really that house and the garage. It just kills, it takes all the impervious surface.
Excuse me, what is the rear yard setback requirement for this lot?
25 feet.
So you couldn't do that either,
Pardon?
the rear yard setback?
Oh, the rear, they could, but,
I guess maybe, I think what he's thinking is if you shifted the house back, would you impact the rear yard? If it was planned originally.
No, I think the house could have been shifted back. I think the front backyard setback is minimum 20 feet, because the lot's only 87.5 feet deep. So that's also coming into play. But the front yard setback's 25 feet, the lot's 50 feet wide, so that's not unusual.
So if the house was sited back, it wouldn't impact the rear yard.
Right, they could have done that.
Coverage.
Another thing we looked at, it's like, let's just tear this garage down and build a garage, a small one, two-car garage in the back. Well, we looked at that, and that would create massive paving compared with what we're asking. So we just didn't even pursue that. What they've also done is they removed an existing sidewalk from the north side of the property. So we've removed about 60 square feet of paving. So really, all we're asking for is about 48 square feet of new paving. I think that's pretty reasonable, at least for me, but I think it's a modest request.
Not for this board.
I know, you guys are just tough. And I understand, impervious surface is really important.
Yes.
But this would just really help out tremendously if they could just get just 6 more feet width by the 18.
All right, are there,
So,
feel free. I heard a,
I have another question. I know you don't have alley access, but if you had alley access, could you put a garage on by code, and
right.
a two-car garage would be fine?
Would be good. And the 2 properties to our south have alley access, so they've got parking. The ones to our north, like the next 6, have garages way back, and they've got a long driveway. So they have parking, and they're okay. And the very last one has a 2-car attached garage with a really wide apron, so they can park plenty of cars. They are really the odd guy out, so.
Well, I have a question. First of all, do you have 2 cars?
I do.
What do you do with the second car, typically?
The second car usually parks kind of across the sidewalk a little bit, or depending on if the first car is parked in the garage, we'll park somewhere else as long as we can with the winter snow.
Now, there's 3 or 4 houses to the north that have the long driveway and have a single-car garage in the back, as I noticed. They have the advantage of parking in tandem along that long driveway.
That's
Is
exactly
that
right.
what they
Yeah,
do?
there's 6 houses actually that they can park in tandem. They could probably park 3 or 4 cars
Right.
if they wanted, but.
Thank you.
all right, any other questions? Any other questions for our applicant? No. I think we got our minds around it at this point.
Okay.
So I'm going to see if there's anybody in the audience that would like to speak either for or against this case. Those 2 young ladies in the back, you guys have any comments on this? No? You guys are good? Okay. Thumbs up? Okay. All right, I'm going to close the case, and I'm going to ask if there's a member of the board who'd like to. Mr. Robke, he's going to make a motion for us.
With regard to case 2018 Z48, move to recommend granting a request for 498 square foot, 39.84 front yard impervious surface coverage variation, and a variation to permit a parking space in a front yard to permit the widening of the existing driveway on a legal non-conforming structure at 415 Prairie Avenue in accordance with the plan submitted.
Oh, second? Second. Mr. Boyer, second. Mr. Robke, your motion.
I am almost always opposed to approving a variation to put a parking lot in the front yard setback. And I think this case is very unique, and I can support it because it is so unique. And I think it is a hardship in this day and age to only have a spot for one car, and the condition was not created by the current owners.
Mr. Boyer?
I would support it. I would add the siting of the house is an issue, the depth of the lot, no alley access, having a garage in the rear yard is actually causing more of an issue with impervious surface, parking restrictions. And then actually I did do a rough measurement. It looked like if the house was conforming in front yard setback, it would be in the rear yard setback. So, I think the siding is the big thing that this issue is going to turn on, and I support it.
All right. Ms. Norick, any comments to add?
I agree. It seems pretty straightforward.
All right. Mr. Cole?
I'm good.
Everything good? Mr. Sermon?
I'd just say I concur, and I think the request is very modest at only 16 feet wide.
Yeah, my thoughts were really along the lines of Mr. Robke's. I'm not a big fan of, front yard setback parking, but this is a unique situation, with the siting of the house creating the hardship, siting of the house on the lot creating the hardship, and the short lot. I also wrote down another comment here. This was a very well-prepared explanation and application to the standards in what we read. So whoever wrote that, nice job. All right, why don't we take a vote?
Mr. Robke?
Yes.
Mr. Boyer?
Yes.
Mr. Colang?
Yes.
Ms. Norick?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Sermon?
Yes.
Chairman Duffy?
Chair votes yes as well. So that's going to go as a positive recommendation to the Village Board. Their meeting's on the 27th, is that right?
23rd.
23rd. It'll be on their consent agenda, though, so. Could I have one of you, either, yeah. Oh, you just sign one of these, sign and date, and the other one's for your collection of documents from the village. And can I have somebody?
I move to authorize the chairman to prepare the report and recommendation for the Zoning Board of Appeals for case number 2018-Z-3.
Do I have a second? Thank you, Mr. Cullen. All in favor?
Sorry, I didn't say the last number. Is it typed wrong there? It was 348. That's not right, 348.
Oh, Z48.
Z48.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, we're all in favor.
I didn't think we've had that.
No.
Feels like it sometimes.
Our next case is 2018 C49, 106 16th Street. This is a request for a 0.5-foot side yard window well setback variation, a 5-foot side yard air conditioner setback variation, a 154.65 square foot rear yard structure impervious surface coverage variation, and a 141.75 square foot rear yard total impervious surface coverage variation to permit the construction of a new home.
Huh. You look familiar. Did you plan it this way?
No.
Certainly saves you time. All right, welcome back.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Mike Benachuk, live here in Wilmette. I'm the architect for Matt and Melissa Pope, who live at 106 16th Street. Now, we were here earlier, and we did get a zoning variance graciously granted to build directly above their existing home. Since then, however, as we looked at it, the existing foundation just couldn't support a second floor. Parts of it could, parts of it couldn't. It's like, okay, wait, this, to rebuild this crawl space doesn't make sense. So we thought, well, what if we just build a new home? The disadvantage is now it's only 17 feet 4 inches wide versus the other one was like 19 and a half. So we lost in width. We could make it a little longer and we could pull it forward a little bit. But the house, everything conforms to all the current zoning, square footages, the setbacks, with the exception, and this kind of threw me, the light well.
Yeah.
I know we can encroach 3 feet into a required side yard setback. I didn't know it had to be 2 feet away from the property line. Our property line on the south side, our combined is 7.5 feet. We have 3 feet 2 on one side and 4 feet 6 on the other.
So this window well is servicing like a family room, or what, I mean, what's in the basement?
It's a
there?
basement, it's a finished basement.
Yeah.
And you need 2 means of egress out of the basement, the stairs and then the light well.
So because you don't have like an exterior entrance out the back of the wall, okay, so.
Right. So this, it's, I think they're about 4 feet wide, minimum 3 feet deep.
Right.
And
So a person
it only
can get
sticks
out.
up about this high above ground, and we're only encroaching about that much, 5 inches actually, into the side yard setback. So that's a variance on that. Let's see. The AC condenser, we did this one before. It's 5 feet from the property line, but it's pushed back by the garage. So actually, it's further from the neighbors there than it would be in a conforming location near the house.
Right,
It'd be
and
closer
is
to their
this
home.
in the same location as
Yes,
the last
exactly the
request?
same location
Okay.
as last time.
So this garage situation and the air conditioner situation, they're the same request
Yeah,
as before?
the garage wasn't in it before.
I thought,
I
okay.
think we were leaving that garage before.
Right.
So here's
Oh, we
where,
left the garage, okay, right.
here's where it gets a little tricky. Normally, well, we're asking, normally you can't be granted variations for a new home because you're creating your own hardships. But I think in this case, because the lot's so small, I think it's justified, at least asking. And they're asking for relief from the current zoning requirements based on their very small lot and a desire to make a reasonable use of their property. So again, the lot's only 25 wide, 125 deep. The existing one-car garage is a legal non-conforming structure that must be removed once the existing home is removed. Therefore, the current zoning requires a 2-car garage. Well, this isn't possible without a variation based on the size of the lot. We've proposed the smallest 2-car garage we can, but there we are. So we're kind of stuck. We can build this house, but we can't build the house because we can't meet the zoning requirements for a 2-car garage. We would happily build a 1-car garage, and I think a 1-car garage with the paving would meet the current zoning. However, we'd need a variation to build a 1-car garage. So we're asking for a little relief just on the garage.
Yeah. All right, we have any questions for our applicant?
I have one.
Yeah.
Does the window well, will that have a railing around it?
No, it will have a walkable grill. So it's only gonna stick up about this high, and I don't think it will have a negative impact on the neighbors.
Okay, no, I was just wondering for children running around, now you've only got 1'8".
Right.
So they're either running in the 1'8" or they're running, I guess, across the
Yeah,
top.
we talked about that, and actually, because of this grill, you could step over it, but nobody really goes over on that side, but somebody could, and that's why this grill has to be strong enough to support kids or people walking on it.
Yeah.
I have a question for Lisa. Remind me the position for gravel as a pervious or impervious surface?
The way the definition is written in the zoning ordinance, anything except grass is considered impervious. So generally, gravel would be considered impervious.
Gravel would be considered impervious. And then they would need want to make sure that they would need a variance to keep the existing garage and the gravel pad that they have
Yes.
with the new, okay.
As a new home, yes.
All right, so they need a variance anyway to keep the existing conditions.
right, any other
And that's
questions?
because the lot is so small. You can't do anything.
Any other questions for our applicant? No? I think we got our grasp on it. Thank you very much. Is there anybody in the audience that'd like to speak either for or against the case? Seeing no one, I'm going to close the case and ask if there's a member of the board who'd like to make the motion. All right, thanks, Mr. Boyer.
In regards to case number 2018-Z26, I move to recommend granting a request for a 5-inch side yard window well setback variation.
Half a foot, though.
Is it a half a foot or 5 inch?
Half a foot, I'm sorry.
Half a foot, he said 5, okay, so half a foot side yard window well setback variation of 5-foot air conditioner setback variation, 154.65 square foot rear yard structure impervious surface coverage variation, and 141.75 square foot rear yard impervious surface coverage variation to permit the construction of a new home at 106 16th Street in accordance with the plan submitted.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Cullen. Mr. Boyer, your motion.
All right, so there's 4 variances. The first one being the half a foot window well setback variation.
Well, let me, isn't it, on the plans it says 1.5 feet, what is it?
That's the distance from the window well to the lot line, right?
And it's got to be 2 feet, so
Oh,
it's-
I got that, thank you. Sorry.
Four variances. The first one is the window well setback, which needs to be installed in a new home. I think that's a minimal request, and it's required, so I have no issue with that. The 5-foot AC setback, the way I'm looking at this, it would generally be in the middle of the house with the size of the lot, the width of the lot, and where they're proposing it is in the back of the lot. It's farther away in reality than it would be if it was in a conforming location. So even though it's closer to the lot line, excuse me, it's really going to have a less of an impact to the neighbors, which would be, that's really what we're concerned about, than if it was in a conforming location, so I'm okay with that one. The other two are interesting because it doesn't really have to do with new construction, really. It's a variance request not on the main structure of the home, which generally with new construction we're really concerned about. Since they have a blank slate, they can build whatever they want. So if someone's asked for a FAR or height or some sort of architectural design that's super cool and they just want it, we usually vote it down. But this is not on the structure of the home. It's this weird issue that they have to tear down the existing structure and they'd have to get a variance anyway to keep what they have. And the way I look at it is I don't really see, and I wouldn't do any measurements on this, but the existing pad that they have is impervious, so I don't really see that there's that much impact of this new garage over the existing conditions because the impervious surface conditions that already exist. So I think I'm fine with it. I think it meets the standards of review.
And the hardship here is just the size of the lot, really.
The width of the lot.
Yeah, the width, yeah. All right.
And the strict application of the codes, which catches them.
Requires them to
Right.
rebuild the garage.
Right.
All right, Mr. Culling, your second.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything Mike said, and, obviously, I mean, they need a variance one way or the other, so either to do a 2-car or replace the 1-car garage, so, I think it meets the standards of review. I think it's because of the narrowness of the lot. I mean, you have a real problem here, and you've already had to skinny the house up a couple of feet, so I think that's the hardship, and so I can support this.
All right, any other comments?
I would only add, I think that if the house was existing, putting aside the new construction issue, I think we would support the garage as a 2-car garage, sort of separating those issues. And it's less than 19 feet wide. You can't get any smaller.
Nope. All right. Yeah, I see the difficulties that you faced here and, absolutely empathize with your plight, so, and sympathize. So I too can support it. I see the hardship here as the width of the lot. Yeah, so why don't we take a vote?
Mr. Boyer?
Yes.
Mr. Culling?
Yes.
Ms. Norick?
Yes.
Mr. Robke?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Sermon?
Yes.
Chairman Duffy?
Chair votes yes as well. So that's going to go as a positive recommendation of the village board. Meeting's on the 23rd, should be on the consent agenda. Should fly through. One of you guys, either one of you, come up, sign this letter and date it for us, please, and then take the other one with you.
And I move
Thank you very much
to
for coming.
authorize the chairman to prepare the report and recommendation for the Zoning Board of Appeals for case number 2018 Z49.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye as well.
This just got to go before date for you. It's just got to go before date, so you know what's next. That one? Yep. Thanks.
Thank you. When you're ready.
Our next case is 2018 Z46, 930 Greenleaf Avenue. This is a request for a 13.55-foot front yard step setback variation, a 17-foot side yard step setback variation, a 1.34-foot side yard adjoining a street ramp setback variation, a 35-foot rear yard fire escape setback variation, a 2.3-foot candle illumination variation, and a 923.4 square foot side yard adjoining a street impervious surface coverage variation to permit remodeling of the legal nonconforming structure.
Hello, welcome.
Hi, thank you. We have a...
I need you to introduce yourself, I'm sorry, just so I know how to address you.
Sure. My name is Andy Tanucci. I'm principal at Woodhouse Tanucci Architects. Architect for the restoration of the Women's Club project.
Welcome to our humble meeting.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. We're here today as the representatives to the Women Club, architects for the project, architects for the new Gilson beach house restoration. Just to let you know that these kinds of projects, these institutional projects, these historic projects are the kind of projects that we've been working on for 30 years in the business. The restoration and reconstruction of the Lake Bluff and Lake Forest, Village Hall. We did the addition to the Wilmette Historic Society, and as recently as today, working still on these historic renovation projects. So I have many slides. If at any point this is too much background for you, I'll either see you start to doze off, or please just wave me off. I think that the history of this project probably precedes it. I know that not all of you were on the board when this was last here, 3 years ago, almost to the day. Some of you were. In February of 2015, there was a horrific fire at the Women's Club project at Greenleaf and 10th. It almost completely destroyed the structure, took out just under half of the structure. The Women's Club was here with you in October of 2015, getting a zoning approval to restore the project, and began work on it in 2016 and 2017 with the real earnest ambition of being done long before this time. For a variety of reasons that, if you're interested in, we can get into, this work took way too long, and very little of it was done as it should have been, or on the pace that was promised to the Women's Club. Steel came out, it was the wrong size. Something else came out, something was wrong with it. So at the end of 2017, the Women's Club severed ties with their previous architect, design-build architect, and hired us to look at this again. And they came to us and they said, the village and the neighbors need this project to be done immediately. Can you help us get it done immediately? And we said, we would love to help you get it done, but we can't get it done immediately because we need to do it the right way. We need to look at it from every angle, and we need to understand the real condition of the structure and what has been done to know how to move ahead. So as architects would, we started with code analysis. We started thinking about the entire project, not just the exterior of the project, which is how it had been originally presented to the zoning board 3 years ago. We have done a numerous amount of kind of feasibility studies and drawings on the project. We have a working set of drawings now and are ready to move forward. We've been working with Bullion Andrews, a very reputable builder in Chicagoland. They have done a lot of feasibility analysis with us on this in the Women's Club. They have looked at it from a cost standpoint And today we can say that based on the scope of work we're proposing, the Women's Club has the money in hand to complete this project. The Women's Club, despite the incredibly long time that it has taken, and we understand that this is way too long, has done their best to stay in contact with the neighbors on their website, and as recently as a week and a half ago, they were in touch with their nearest neighbors to the south, but they have been in touch with their neighbors. We hosted a public meeting a few months ago to present this same kind of presentation, almost to the slide, as to where we stood and why it had taken so long and what our plan was to move forward. So, moving forward, we, as I mentioned, are ready to proceed. We are here, obviously, to do these entitlement process, to conduct this entitlement process, to then get the permits, to then move ahead. So our plan is to, in 2019, finish this project. This time next year, our hope is to be done with this project, to complete the building enclosure, to complete the roof, to complete the walls, to complete the landscape, to return the project, the site, to as it was and better. And then to build out the southern portion of the interior of the project, to fully build out the interior portion of the southern half of the first floor of the project, so that the Women's Club can operate out of the building and be sustainable in the building, with the hope that in the subsequent years they would be able to finish the renovation of the remainder of the north half of the first floor and the second story. So, entitlement process now. This zoning committee meeting, we have a appearance review meeting scheduled for later in the month on the 15th. Obtain our permit, finish our construction drawings, obtain bids, construct as soon as possible next year, and complete. The project, which I again know you're all familiar with its location, is here at 10th and Greenleaf. North is to the left here on the screen. So the existing structure here, and I'll state it again, I guess. Our hardship is just that the existing structure in this residential zoning district is a legal existing non-conforming building. Every side of it is already outside of the setback. Our plan is to fully restore the exterior as it had been on the north. Most of this work has already been done, but we need to add a new fire escape. That's one of our zoning variances that we're asking. I'll highlight that again. But to restore it as it was with the full stone veneer facade, the windows to, as close as possible, match their historic condition on all the various facades to the south as well. We have the existing, the new stone veneer being, this facade being almost entirely rebuilt as it was damaged. We're going to talk about these steps here on the south, these new steps that provide code-required egress out of the south side of the building, obviously step into the setback as the building already is in the setback. On the east, this is probably where we have to do the most amount of work. I will come back to this elevation and highlight that amount of work, but again, bringing the stone veneer that's on the building here, and then on some of the rebuilt portions here, a plaster facade. Finally, on the west, which isn't technically the front of the building, but is where the front door of the building is, we have the structure intact to this line, and then kind of the new construction that needs to happen here. South of that line, this entire wall generally needs to be rebuilt, and there's a ramp that's going in for accessibility to the structure that, again, is within our setback because the building is already in the setback. That construction on the first floor that I mentioned, the large auditorium, for anyone who's been inside, it's generally gutted right now. It will remain unoccupiable. We will block it off so that it's not to be accessed. It's not going to become a life safety hazard in any way. And we are going to build out this south side of the first floor. So entry, existing entry, new gathering space, new kitchen, new restrooms, all code compliant, all fully accessible. I've met with the village to go over these aspects. Now, thinking about and contemplating how this building, should have been designed as an assembly space. We have egress concerns and accessibility concerns, warranting the need for an accessible ramp into the building, and then proper passage out of the building to the south here with the landing and steps, and to the east, where the building, again, is already within the setback and then is on the property line. I'm sorry, the walkway passage is on the property line. Okay, so variances, of which there are many. 4 setback variations requested, lighting, and impervious surface. So just to walk through them, here is the site plan again with the noted required setbacks. That's this red zone. Our building, being this existing legal non-conforming structure, is already beyond all of the setbacks in purple. On the south side, the egress stair extending into that setback. On the west side, the new accessibility ramp extending.
So those two things are incremental additions to the setback, right? Those were not in the original.
Oh, that is correct. I'm sorry.
They were
Yes,
not
that's
in
right.
the
So the
original
purple was,
envelope.
that's right. The purple was existing.
The original envelope, yes.
Correct. Existing into the setback. These, sorry, here.
Yeah, okay, that's clear.
So these are, sorry, apologize. Yes, so here are the following variations. On the west side, the ramp. On the south side, the egress stair. On the north side, the fire escape. Yes?
I just have one question.
Yep.
Sorry to interrupt.
Not at all.
But the stairs and the ramp, I understand why you're adding them, but they weren't there before because the elevation of that space, or?
And the building being 100 years old just didn't meet modern code for egress.
But did they have stairs on that side? On the,
No.
no. So it was a different, okay. Sure, I understand.
And then to the east, again, another egress passage that its landing puts itself right on the property line. That egress did exist, as did the fire escape to the north.
So it did exist?
It did exist.
And there
yes.
were stairs there?
Yes. The ramp did not exist. There were stairs already encroaching. The fire escape did exist. It fell off in the fire. We need to replace it because there's a mezzanine in the auditorium that's going to be encroaching. There was egress to the east, so that was existing and was encroaching. We're just having to rebuild it, and the south then is new.
So why isn't that purple then if it was existing?
Because we're rebuilding it. Is
that how that works, Lisa? That it,
It
they
could have
have to
been
rebuild it,
could have been
that-
yellow or blue or something.
that it's not considered?
Yeah, that's right. Because we're having to rebuild it, it now becomes something we need
It
this.
wasn't
Yeah.
Right, just like the fire escape. That's why the fire escape's green. Yeah.
To this point of rebuilding, when we have the building in this condition and we have to rebuild this wall, the new steel structure that's been put in here is actually forcing us to raise the elevation of the building beyond what it was. So this section of the wall was not there, but based on how the steel had been installed by the previous builder, we now have to bring the wall of the building up to this height to actually cover the steel.
This is the east elevation.
This is the east elevation facing the neighbor. I don't think the neighbor is here, but again, this whole package has been delivered to the neighbor in conversations between the Women's Club a week ago.
And as we look at this, to the left of the picture is the egress that we're talking about. You
This one
rebuilding.
here, correct.
Yep.
Yes.
And there is another one in the center there? Is that another door to the outside?
Here, yes. That's existing and intact.
And intact. And there are stairs there already that don't need any modification, right, or
That's right.
improvement?
Yeah, the fire didn't damage this portion.
Where do the stairs lead?
There's one
Sidewalk.
from the basement that come up, and then these come down and head out to the north to the alley.
I got it.
So that rebuild of that wall, again, is new, was not there previously. Therefore, we have to ask for the variation on the wall. But the wall is required because the steel that's been placed there is now in a location that we have to cover, otherwise it will be exposed. Okay, that generally covers the setback variations. The next variation, the fifth variation, is the minimum allowed light level at the property line, which only allows that 1 foot candle at the property line. So, building code requires that at any egress, we need light for proper exiting of a building. The building code requires that. So we need to have lights at all these exit doors. There are a combination of existing lights and new lights. We can go over those. We have those identified. Because this building is just a few feet off the property line, even a light fixture with full cutoff is going to cast this amount of light on the property line. So we are just over the allowed bleed there on the property line.
You're talking on the east side or both?
On both the east and the north.
Okay. Are you going to show us your fixtures that you're going to use?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so I don't know how in-depth we want to get. Happy to answer any questions.
Why don't you show us your fixtures?
So here are the fixtures that are being chosen. This is an existing fixture. This is what the existing fixture looks like. The existing fixtures are in the pink locations, here, here, here. The new fixtures are a fixture that looks like this, very minimal and full cutoff, so you can't see the light source, unlike the existing fixtures that provide the bare minimum amount of light required by code to those exit doors. Those are in the green locations.
So what's the thought on keeping existing fixtures and not putting in all new fixtures because you've got the exposed light bulb in the existing fixtures, which cast more brightness, if you want to say it, or more direct light at the neighbors? Yeah.
Yes, likely that is true, but they are just the existing fixtures, and given the historic nature of the building, keeping those fixtures has been the decision to move forward, that we've been carrying moving forward.
Some shaking of heads over here in the audience.
Sorry, that indicates an existing fixture location, but we are replacing all of the fixtures.
Oh,
with the new.
Sorry.
All the fixtures.
Okay, so they're all going to have a blackout, or how'd you refer to it? Blackout.
Yeah,
blackout. Cutoff. Thank you.
Full cutoff, shielded light fixtures.
In the light.
Pink just indicates an existing location.
Oh, where they were.
Green indicates where we're creating a
New
new
location.
location due to illuminating and egress path.
And the light just shines up and down?
No, just down.
Just down, okay.
All right, that's on the north wall.
This is on the east?
So you're illuminating the two doors in the center plus the walk toward the rear. What's to the front? I can't quite see.
Front being?
To the, what would that be, to the south, where there's a
This light
fixture
here.
there?
Yep.
And is there any other fixtures moving toward the south, or just the one over the door?
Just the one.
Okay.
And what height are they mounted at? Is it just
Very-
above ADA, or is it a little higher?
Just above the door.
Okay, about the two that are further to the right there?
Oh, we were estimating those to be just above that 6-foot-high fence. We don't know that exact
Okay.
location, but there's an existing fence there that they're just above.
Okay,
Those are the existing locations.
okay.
Those were referenced. Yeah, I had those pictures here, sorry.
There's one being shown in the center
Yeah.
photo there is where those existing fixtures are located, approximately 7-8 feet above the grade.
Okay.
And has the neighbor on that side weighed in on that? Have they had any opinion on that? Or?
They're very pleased that we're using the
Cut off.
The new one?
Yeah.
They gotta come up.
So I hate to do this to you, but any comments have to be made into the microphone. And you're welcome to make them because you were just addressed, but they have to be made in the microphone because somebody transcribes the meeting for us and they can't hear you. Yeah.
Right. So the neighbors are happy that we're using the cutoff fixtures in those locations. The neighbors are aware of this plan, have been walked through the plan, and are happy we're using the cutoff fixtures.
All square foot and setbacks.
Okay, so those are, both the east and the north is where we are requesting the variance from the light, and that's why those are the two elevations provided. Then with regard to the impervious surface variation, the way this is calculated, as you know, we have a building that already extends into the setback, so that counts. There is existing drive and the existing step, so that counts. It's the new accessible walkway here that we're adding. 100 square feet of it are within that zone, so we're requesting that 100 square feet in addition to the
Existing.
already non-conforming.
That's a requirement, right?
Yeah.
Yes, the
ADA
accessibility
requirement,
ramp.
right.
Yes, absolutely.
All right.
So, yeah, those are our requests.
So we got the question, General, I vaguely recall, or not in great detail recall, the meeting 3 years ago. What is different that you're requesting today from then?
Yeah, that's a good question. In fact, I just read those meeting minutes here this evening. That variation was only with regard to rebuilding the exterior. It was it lacked all of the detail about the inside of the building. It lacked any detail about it lacked the details of the plan. It was more coming back saying that we need a variance to rebuild, to renovate the structure as it was because of its existing non-conforming location.
To the existing envelope. We approved that, correct?
Yes, and that was approved.
And the board approved that.
That's correct. 2015 Z49.
Would you characterize all these adjustments as life safety and code-required upgrades?
Yes.
Every single one of them.
Yes.
All right. Any other questions?
Do we know when the building was constructed originally?
We just were talking about that earlier. 1912. 1912. Sometime between let the record show that there is some amount of debate about when the building was constructed, but sometime between 1910 and 1912, and then renovated in 1929.
All right. Any other questions for our applicant?
I'm curious about the lighting. So is the amount of lighting that will be provided, whatever kind of bulb, or it's probably not a bulb, whatever it is it the minimum that you're putting in? Because it's on that east property line as well as on the north property line where you're exceeding, the
Yes.
The foot candles.
the
Yeah.
foot candles at the property line.
Yes.
So
It is. We believe it's the minimum. I mean, it's the minimum code required. In addition to the existing fixtures that are there, which are also in the locations of these egress locations.
So maybe, someone would ask, all right, well, are you using a 60-watt bulb when a 40-watt bulb could then put out less illumination and cause less light? I mean, maybe that's
It's
kind of
hard
where.
in foot candles.
Yeah,
really
that's
well
kind of
stand,
where,
but-
that's kind of I think the question.
It's a 6-watt LED bulb. It's extremely.
Putting aside the wattage of the lamp, that's just the energy, it's the
Yeah,
light
yeah.
output.
Yeah,
And
the
I think you're
lumens
at
or whatever.
2.7 lumens or
There you go.
something like that.
Yeah.
If you were doing a walking path in a garden, you might illuminate that path with about 2 to 3 foot candles. Okay, this room, I'm just guessing, they used to say that for reading pencil, you needed
70
35-foot candles
Oh, okay.
to read pencil writing. So it's not a lot of light that it's
Gives it some
putting out.
context,
An exterior parking garage or parking lot. I'm doing a big lighting project right now. Has 5 to 7 foot candles, and most parking lots, not a shopping center, those are lit much more. But like a guaranteed rate field, all those parking lots are 5-foot candles,
Okay.
average. So it's
But on the north side, you're in an alley.
not bright.
Yes, that's correct.
Right. And on the east side, I don't know how much distance there is.
Well, there's not very much.
Not a lot at all.
It's only a few. I mean, it's.
But you've
three-foot
given,
walkway.
you've
It's a
given that
3-foot
neighbor
walkway.
all the information.
Yeah, that's correct.
The lighting, I believe the lighting would be as if you had a home and you just put some regular
Yeah, lights on the side of your home. Yeah.
house. That's all it's going to be, but even
Probably
less
even
because
less
it's
because of the
shining
cutoff.
down.
Yeah.
So it's not an industrial light.
Right. It's not a floodlight barrel lamp.
All right, any other questions for our applicant? No? Anybody in the audience want to speak either for or against the case? Seeing no one rushing up, I'm going to close the case and ask if there's a member of the board. Mr. Summers going to make the motion.
I think I probably should have, I forgot to mention that, full disclosure, my wife is a member of the Women's Club and on the board. There's no financial connection between us and the Women's Club, so.
All right, great. Now we got to start over.
All right. 23 slides.
room, please?
All right, go, get out of here, Boyer. All right, Mr. Sermon, your motion.
You can have a seat.
Yeah,
if you'd
Mr.
like.
Tanucci, yeah. Feel free to get comfy.
I move to recommend granting a request for a 13.55 front yard setback variation, a 17-foot side yard setback variation, a 1.34 side yard adjoining a street ramp setback variation, a 35-foot rear yard fire escape setback variation, a 2.3-foot candle illumination variation, a 923.4 square foot or 53.62% side yard adjoining a street impervious surface coverage variation to permit the remodeling of a legal non-conforming structure at 930 Greenleaf Avenue in accordance with the plan submitted.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, thank you, Mr. Schneider, second. Mr. Sermon, your motion.
I think all the requests are very reasonable. They're all for life safety issues or existing conditions. They're just trying to work with what's there and make sure it's brought to code, so I can support it.
All right, Mr. Schneider.
I agree. To rebuild the club to the existing envelope was already approved, and these are just, as was said, these are life safety addition that causes the variation request.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I think this is one of these unique properties, kind of like Michigan Shores. You're kind of stuck in the middle of a neighborhood. It's really hard to apply the normal applications. I think everybody does want to see this thing rebuilt. I was actually surprised that it wasn't much further along when I drove by it today. And so I, also agree with the other comments, so I can support this.
Any other comments?
I'm pleased with the coordination that you've done with the neighbors, throughout the process, so that makes me comfortable with.
Ms.
the
Boyer?
proposed changes.
I don't think I have anything to add.
Excellent. That's a first.
We haven't used the term hardship, but I think the hardship comes up built in 1910 or 1929, but it was renovated, or 1910 or 1912, but it was renovated in 1929. I think it's due for an update to modernizing.
And
That's an understatement, yeah.
I believe several of us were here at the last meeting. 5 of us, I think, were, we supported it before as well.
Yeah, I saw this, the hardship, pointed out, Mr. Colling, that this is a commercial building plopped in the middle of a residential neighborhood. Additionally, the hardship would be that we've got the siting of the building on the lot, the way it's set up. So in walking into this, my biggest concern was really about the lights, and as demonstrated with the fixtures, it's minimized as much as it can. So I have no problem supporting this. So why don't we take a vote?
Mr. Sermon,
Yes.
Mr. Schneider.
Yes.
Mr. Boyer,
Yes.
Mr. Colling,
Yes.
Ms. Norick,
Yes.
Mr. Repke,
Yes.
Chairman Duffy.
Chair votes yes as well. So that's going to go as a positive recommendation to the village board. Meeting's on the 23rd. Should be on the consent agenda, but I still suggest you show up just in case there's any questions. Could you come up and sign one of these for us? And then could I have someone?
I move to authorize the chairman to prepare the report and recommendation for the Zoning Board of Appeals for case number 2018 Z46.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye as well.
Move to approve the meeting minutes for the Zoning Board of Appeals for Wednesday, August 15th, 2018.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Move to approve the meeting minutes for the Zoning Board of Appeals for Wednesday, September 5th, 2018.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye as well. Okay, I'm going to open the mic for public comment right now. Anybody want to make an announcement, a party, a happy birthday wish, a congratulatory comment? Nothing? All right, I'm going to adjourn the meeting then. Thank you.
Total info, dailies.